friends, Atlantia vivere. I will talk to you today about the shitty materialistic civilization if we all live, and because this planet is a paradise. My head is a planet, it's a paradise. I talk with an Algerian spy who is also an American spy, and after I talk with him I love America even more, and I like this guy. And he told me, yes, you're living on a paradise, you can go hundreds of light years in any direction, you will find only barren planets or planets with very few species, and you have such a paradise here and you're mocking. And I said, well, if I'm living in such a paradise, why don't I have a leg, a hand, some teeth in my mouth? Why do I stay in home instead of taking work? She said, well, why don't they pay me for my work of 16 years leading this country called Romania? Well, she said, well, you have to get used to it. This is how unfair things are on this planet. Let me tell you how unfair things are, because I have seen today another movie called September 11, whatever, about September 11. It's a 5-hour movie. I only released it 3 hours, and yes, the points are well made. The buildings were, there was a controlled demolition in both towers, but this doesn't matter. I will tell you what it doesn't matter. Because, let me start with something more simple. See, you all have bought some, Android tablets, and you are very happy with your purchase, $100 Android tablet. And why did you throw away your tablets in about 6 months or 1 year? If they are so great, technology is no longer progressing, the Moore law is dead, why aren't you using your old tablet? Well, because the Android operating system is immature. It has problems with Wi-Fi networks, but also iOS, which is not a true operating system. You cannot access the file system, for instance. And there is a video called Android versus iOS. It is also more shitty than Android. Windows 8 is very sluggish. So tablets and smartphones are not mature products, and there are people who are spending fortunes. They are buying thousands of tablets and smartphones and testing them all and making videos on YouTube to tell you how this tablet sucks, how this smartphone sucks. They all suck, Because now people are running away after materialistic things in the old age, and they are lying a lot. There was a commercial on TV which presented a 40-year-old man taking a bath, and he accidentally dropped his tablet inside his bath tube, and then he got it again and he started to type some mails. Why? Well, why don't you try doing this at home? See if you survive the electrical shock. Drop your tablet in the bathtub, see if your beloved iPad still works after that. This is a good exercise for consciousness. Now, so there are many crazy ideas in this world. People are running after time and money. This is the most common question. How long will it take? Because I want it now. All those so-called mature people are like 5 years old. The magnificent constructions of the past, like the pyramids, they were built in many generations. La Notre Dame de Paris was built by several kings. No, Louvre was built by several kings, and those buildings are still standing. But do you know why? Because they are built by stone and by using the mathematical expressions of arcades. An arcade is a structure which has the form of a semicircle, of a vertical semicircle, which is made of stones. They are very well crafted stone bricks. They had many slaves in the slave age, and they went to the quarry and they carefully, made every brick, and then they carefully put it down put it up on the arcade, and first the construction was supported by wooden bricks, by wooden poles, and then the poles were removed, and there was this tradition that the Grand Master and all his apprentices, these are the first levels in Freemasonry, because construction, civil engineering is an art, and in order for the church or for the great cathedral to be tested, there was a nice test. All the construction with the master were put under the arcade, and the king and the all other nobles started to make a lot of noise and kicking the walls. And if the walls collapsed, the first one who were killed were, of course, the builders of that building. It was very expensive to build a building like that, made of stone, but they last for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. Also, the pyramids have the advantage that their basis is much larger than their point, than their apex. So they are very stable constructions. Of course, in the materialistic world of today, they will no longer be suitable, because they will offer very little space, or living space, or office space, compared to the surface, to the land surface they will occupy. And land is very expensive. Where is land very expensive? Well, land is very expensive in the areas which are populated by humans, in which there is water and electricity and other services like internet, phone coverage, and so on. So yes, if you go with an airplane as 33,000 feet, you will no longer have a phone connection. And in this film, it was shown that it was impossible for the passengers of the hijacked planes at 9/11 to phone, to call their relatives. Also, a passenger female said it's a frame and yes, they have Section 1 or other secret services. They simply hijack the airplanes, and they force under gunpoint those so-called relatives to phone, to call home and say, well, we were hijacked by Arabs and so on. And then they sent some airplanes, some drones into the buildings, and then they had some controlled demolition. But this does not matter. Do you know why? Because in America, most buildings are built by wood and bricks. They are made like in the old age. And these constructions are not as sturdy as those made of stone. The constructions made of stones are more sturdy, even if the modern constructions made of concrete. What is concrete? It is a mix of rocks taken from rivers and sand. Sand is combined with cement, which is a chemical compound, and you obtain something called mortar, and you put the mortar as a liaison, something to make the rocks stick together, and you pour this compound into some wooden frames. And then, in order to assure, because this material called concrete is very brittle, you must also ensure some elasticity. And steel is used for this purpose. You have some wire frames of steel put inside the concrete, and you have the reinforced concrete. Yeah. So this is the best material. If on the other hand you have a structure made of totally from steel, as support and glass and partitions made of clay as was and paper like it was the World Trade Center. It was a very old construction. First, I must say that we civil engineers have something called STAS, and the STAS tells us that a modern construction which is made for civilians should last 10 years in the west and 15 years in the east. A construction which is made for office buildings and other industrial purposes lasts for 25 years, and a construction which is made for a dam or something like a nuclear missile silo or something other very important strategic buildings, they are guaranteed to last for 50 years. Also football stadiums and soccer stadiums and other sports facilities are designed to last for 50 years. The point is that after the warranty period is done, no one is to blame if the structure suddenly collapse. And the reason why we, at least in Romania and other eastern countries, use concrete instead of steel or wood and bricks is because steel has two very nasty properties. First is called the fatigue of materials. So when you build a structure, steel is very elastic and very good. However, 25 years later, after you have loaded the same structure with people and stuff, it will no longer be so. So the building could collapse at any moment according to our STAS. And if the building could collapse at any moment, it means that at any moment in time the World Trade Center could have collapsed and tens of thousands of people could have died, maybe hundreds of thousands if you take into account also the surrounding buildings. So the buildings had to be pulled down. They were pulled down when there were about 3,000 people, 2,900 people working there, mostly poor people. And I am willing to bet that before that there was some serious negotiation, because the construction guilds, the Freemasons said, look, this building is no longer warranted. It is past its guarantee. If the building falls into your head, it will not be your fault. And then the emotional reaction is, well, but we have paid a lot of money, we have made a lot of loans at the bank, we have a good business. It is said, that was the advertisement, that the building could hold 20 times or 3 times or 5 times its load. Yes, when it was new. When it was new, not 25 years later. And if an airplane strikes the building, it will be business as usual. Yes, all your employees will be dead, your offices will be destroyed, but the buildings will still be standing. It will be business as usual for you, because you will hire new poor people to work there. So this was the advertisement. It was like the advertisement with that naked man in the bathtub, which drops its tablet inside the bathtub while he's taking a bath, and the tablet still works and he does not get electrocuted. Don't try this at home. So, and it was said in the video, yes, the buildings are very sturdy, and when you pass 5 years into, or 7 in my case, in the civil engineering faculty, you will learn that those buildings are actually very fragile, because it matters where the support structures are. If in the case of the Twin Towers, Apollo and Artemis, the support structures were on the sides and in the center, this makes a lot of difference vis-a-vis the structures, the common structures where the supports are distributed evenly across the structure. Obviously, the chance for the structure to fall is greater in the case of the World Trade Center. If the support mechanisms are located in the frame which surrounds the building, in the exterior walls and on the interior shaft, where the stairs and the elevators are, this is not enough to compensate for the fact that there are wide open areas. You know. And yes, the partitions also offer some small protection and so on. I am not saying, because it will be really stupid for me to say that yes, some drones entered the buildings and then it was a great heat and all the buildings collapsed because the steel melted. No, the steel melts at 1200 degrees Celsius. It will be impossible to melt. But on the other hand, judging from a human point of view, you will understand that those Freemasons felt the need to pull those buildings down, knowing that those buildings are outside their warranty period, guaranteed by the Stas. So yes, in Romania, we are a poor country, we have a lot of buildings, a lot of flats which are from the 60s and 70s and 50s and 40s. At the first earthquakes, they fall. And a lot of people will die, people will make a big cross and will go forward. However, in a young society like America, people usually fail to understand that there is a beginning and an end to all things. These buildings are not as sturdy as you believe them to be. They are actually quite fragile. And you know, if you have a concrete building, it's like you have an old HDD. It is, you know, it is not a tall building, it is more traditional, but if the building is about to fall onto your head, you will notice some big cracks developing in your ceiling. When you see this, you will say, yes, my ceiling is about to fall into my head. It does not matter if I have a big loan at the bank, maybe for 40 years, and I'm a slave forever at the bank. I must get out of here before I will die. So this is a good thing, because there are many poor people here who are buying apartments in old flats, like Alin Pop, the astrologer, who said, yes, I'm coming from Siget, I come from the countryside, I came to Cluj, I am a successful businessman, I made a life for myself, I made a big loan at the bank, and I bought an old apartment in an old flat built in the 60s because it was less expensive than a flat in a new building. So this is how it works, my friends. There is no causality between the fact that you will spend something which is for you, a large sum of money to buy something, and the fact that that something is about to fall onto your head. You see, there is this thing called the fatigue of materials, which basically means that if you load a certain structure for a certain period of time with a certain load, then eventually that structure will collapse. This is quite obvious, don't you? Understand. Even the Great Pyramids will fall, and all the secret technology will be revealed. Yes, they will fall in a few thousand years, because those structures were built by pharaohs which had infinite budgets, which is not the case today. Today people want a tall building to be built in 5 years and to cost very little. So very cheap materials are being used, and very cheap engineers and workers are being used. A Freemason told me that the basic structure is a triangulum. Which is a triangulum? It is a structure in which there are 3 individuals, a master and 2 apprentices, which learn from him. And the next structure in Freemasonry, it is the 7 people structure. There are 3 masters, 2 kalfas, and 2 apprentices. I don't know how to. 2 big apprentices, 2 small apprentices. So 3 masters, 2 big apprentices, 2 small apprentices. And then you have in the ancient Scottish rite, you have 10 10 denominations. In the Great Orient of France you have 33 degrees, and then you have 66 degrees. If someone asks you what do you believe in God, and if you're stupid enough to say yes, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, you will not pass the degree 33. If you say I have made my own religion, I believe in God, but I believe it in my own way, then the gates of Lucifer are open to you. So, this is actually very shallow. This friend of mine told me that most people in Freemasonry, the lower ranks, under degree 33, they are so stupid that they can't even compose something, because in order to pass to the next level, it's like a game. They will teach you some crazy, stupid idea, and in 2 months you have to make a composition, like you are in the 5th grade in school. But many people who have billions of dollars and millions of dollars, they are so entrenched in this materialistic society that they don't know. They don't have the philosophical capacity to write 2 pages about an abstract idea or a philosophical idea. So, yes, all the things about 9/11 are true. It is a big conspiracy. The Americans wanted to attack the Arabs and steal their oil. Yes, because they need the oil in America, because they don't want to spend their own resources. They prefer to spend our resources and send people to buy Rocha Montana and other things in poor countries, you see. Maybe they no longer have natural resources. This is also a great possibility. So, the buildings were pulled down. 3,000 people died. If they were not pulled down, then a lot more people would have died. If they would have allowed the buildings to collapse on themselves instead of controlled demolition, then probably the buildings would have bended over and collapsed on the other buildings surrounding them, and a lot of more people and damage would have been caused, and a lot of more people would have died. Sorry, I'm very tired now. I was a Dracula last night. So, my friends, this is the truth. Goodbye.